I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
How the Brooklyn Diocese marked the end of the year for priests.
All year we've been praying for our priests. Whenever we had our meetings, whenever we had our rosaries, we have a special prayer that we say for the priests.
Plus, celebrating the heritage of the islands close to home.
Particularly when we're away from home, the differences are not so strong because we all love the music, we love the food, you know.
And after scandal and suffering, prayers for healing.
Though we can't do a lot, we can certainly pray, and we believe in the power of prayer.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Friday marked the end of the year for priests, and at the end of last week, we showed you how that event was marked in Rome, but there was a Mass here in Brooklyn as well.
It happened on Friday evening at St. James Cathedral on the Feast of the Sacred Heart. The Mass was celebrated entirely in Spanish and involved many members of the Society of the Sacred Heart.
Qué tarde tan agradable. Es el Sagrado Corazón, es el amor de Dios, es Jesús que se nos da con todo su cariño, con toda su ternura, con todo su ser. Y las señoras del Sagrado Corazón de la Diócesis de Brooklyn vienen a compartir ese amor de Dios. Today is a special day because not only are we celebrating the feast day of the Ladies of the Sacred Heart, but we are also praying for priests. We know that in Rome, our Holy Father has been gathering with over 4,000 priests to close with an outdoor Mass, the Year of the Priest. And we wanted to do something here in Brooklyn with our Hispanic community, and that's why we're gathered here today. Las cofradas del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús tienen una devoción especial de rezar por sacerdotes y seminaristas. Queridas hijas, socias de la cofradía, recen por nuestros seminaristas y sacerdotes, recen por los jóvenes de la diócesis.
The Sacred Heart Society is a society of women that their mission is to spread the word and love and honor for the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and this has been going on for centuries. The Sacred Heart appeared to St. Margarita of Alacoque in the 17th or 18th century, and the devotion to the Sacred Heart Society has a very large following. Every year we try to get new societies to be formed in the different parishes.
Ahora les invito a esas señoras que aún no pertenecen a la cofradía, que se acerquen para que en este momento tomen su juramento como miembros de la cofradía del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús.
We try to encourage the new members, younger members, to join every year. That's why today we had about close to 20 new members that joined the society from different parishes. And that's part of our mission too, to encourage younger women to join the societies.
Sí, es un compromiso que hacemos para servir a los demás, no solamente en la parte espiritual, también lo llevamos en las partes de solidaridad, de ayudar a todos los que necesitan.
La nuestra es una historia que encuentra en Jesucristo la plenitud. Él es la encarnación de Dios y por lo tanto es su amor. The heart is the word that we use to express that is everything that is tender, that is loving, that is kind. When I talk to anyone and I want to have a heart, let's talk heart to heart. The heart is the symbol for us human beings of love. And who is love but God Himself?
Well, there's more currents to come just ahead. We'll have the day's headlines, including more of what Pope Benedict had to say about the year for priests and growing controversy in this country over pro-life license plates. We have those stories and more next.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up just a bit later, amid the clergy sex abuse crisis, there is forgiveness.
But first, we'll check the day's headlines. With confirmation hearings 2 weeks away, we're getting a better idea of where Supreme Court nominee Elena Kagan might stand on some controversial issues. Reports say documents released Friday from Kagan's time as White House counsel under President Clinton gave insight about her views on abortion and religious freedom, among other things. A 1996 memo shows Kagan felt it was best to let doctors decide if a late-term abortion was necessary. In another memo from the same year, the now nominee cited religious freedom as reasoning for her support of a landlady who refused to rent to an unmarried couple because she believed premarital sex was wrong. Kagan's confirmation hearings began in the Senate on June 28th. Well, abortion also at the center of controversy in Massachusetts, where a pro-life group introduced a license plate that already appears in 25 other states. But some residents would rather the plates just hit the road. Justine Waldman reports.
With a mother holding a baby, the new state plate also says "Choose Life" in red letters on the bottom.
It's all about saving infants. That's what we're all about.
The new plates cost an extra $40 above the normal registration fee. The group behind the plate, Choose Life Incorporated, says a portion of the money raised will go to state pregnancy crisis centers.
We're not about changing abortion rights. We're about helping women by helping them financially to make what we feel is the right decision, what they obviously feel is the right decision.
Pro-choice groups in Massachusetts worry what type of medical information these centers will tell women.
Typically, the organizations that are involved in this are so-called crisis pregnancy centers. They've been proven to provide false, misleading, and medically inaccurate information to women. That is of deep concern to us.
It's not clear yet which organizations will receive the money. Even so, drivers have already pre-purchased 1,700 of the new vanity plates. And people on the street have mixed feelings about their new choice of license plate. Would you want a license plate like this on your car?
I wouldn't mind putting that on my car because I like to choose life.
I think it's fine that Massachusetts residents who do want to buy this, I think it's wonderful that people do support their agenda that they support, and I think that's fine.
As long as it's, by the letter of the law, then I'm good with it.
I probably wouldn't make a political statement on my car.
And that is Justine Waldman reporting. Well, immigration reform continues to be a hot topic of discussion nationwide in the wake of Arizona's strict new immigration law and also funerals last week for 2 men who were killed by U.S. Border Patrol agents. Well, Catholic bishops across North America say reform is needed. The bishops' conferences of the U.S., Mexico, and Canada this weekend called on Congress and the Obama administration to honor the country's tradition as a nation of immigrants and make sure that migrants are allowed to work hard and enjoy the benefits of legal protection. The bishops said the reform they're calling for would preclude the need to impose criminal penalties on undocumented immigrants. They say it would also end the breakup of families.
The European debt crisis has been weighing heavily on Wall Street recently. It was also on Pope Benedict's mind this weekend as he met with some of Europe's financial leaders. We get more on the meeting from H2O News.
Pope Benedict XVI on Saturday received the participants in the 45th meeting of the Development Bank of the Council of Europe, telling them that the present economic crisis must serve to strengthen social cohesion, the development of adequate public infrastructure, and reaffirm the primacy of ethics over merely economic concerns. The Pope said Christianity is the source of spiritual and moral values that form the heritage of European peoples, and that the European Development Bank, in line with the original indications of the Council of Europe, must be used to build solidarity and fraternity, and to put people and families at the center of the economy.
Meantime, the Pope took time out this weekend to reflect on the Year for Priests, which wrapped up last week. As we hear from Rome Reports, Benedict also spoke about a newly beatified journalist known as Lolo.
Benedict XVI spoke about the success of the Year for Priests and said priests are a gift for the Church.
Lasciano tutto per dedicarsi interamente al servizio del popolo cristiano sull'esempio del buon pastore.
The Pope also recalled the beatification of Manuel Lolo Lozano Garrido, a journalist who died in Spain in 1971, whom he called an example for all the journalists in the world.
Los periodistas podrán encontrar en él un testimonio elocuente del bien que se puede hacer cuando la pluma refleja la grandeza del alma y se pone al servicio de la verdad y las causas nobles.
Benedict XVI also remembered two other newly blessed, Polish Jerzy Popielutsko and Slovenian Lojze Groste.
Leaders of a Christian school of theology in California plan an unorthodox path for students this fall. Claremont School of Theology, traditionally a Methodist institution, will take on students of the Islamic and Jewish faiths. The new program allows students from different faith backgrounds to cross-enroll at Claremont, while Claremont students will be allowed to do the same at Muslim and Jewish schools. The program already faces some resistance from conservatives in each religious community, but faculty members say their intent is to teach religious tolerance by putting it into practice. And finally, more than 2,000 Spanish-speaking members of the diocesan Cursillo movement traveled to the National Shrine of Our Lady of Czestochowa. That's in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, on Saturday. The trip included the annual Ultria, a reunion of those who have completed their Cursillo training. The day included Mass, an outdoor rosary, picnics, and testimonies of faith. A photographer from the diocesan newspaper The Tablet was there and snapped these shots of the action. The Cursillo movement was founded in 1944 and focuses on training lay people to become more effective leaders in the church.
Well, like they had a lot of fun there. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up.
Coming up, if your idea of an island is one named Manhattan or Staten, prepare for something a little more exotic for Caribbean Heritage Month.
Caribbean spans from below Florida to South America, including Panama, Belize, and so on. And there are lots of people here, particularly in Brooklyn and Queens.
Welcome back. Well, if you found yourself in Manhattan this weekend, you may have felt like you were on another island, but just a little further south. And no, I'm not talking about Staten Island either. It was the annual Puerto Rican Day Parade, and it happened actually right in the middle of Caribbean American Heritage Month.
Indeed it did, and I have Haitian and Dominican roots in my own family, as you might know, so this particular heritage is something that's pretty close to my heart. I was curious to get a better sense of what this month even involves and some of the festivities and happenings in our area, so I sat down to chat with Norma Blaze, and she chairs the West Indian Caribbean Apostolate here in the diocese. Well, Norma, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it. And also, we're talking about National Caribbean American Heritage Month and all of the events that go on. And as the chairperson of the West Indian Caribbean Apostolate here, you know a lot about the diaspora that you represent. Tell us who exactly is here and what are some of the activities you have planned for this month.
Well, I'm going to start off with the church activity. For us, there's an annual Mass that we have. Used to have it in September, following Labor Day. But since we have this National Day, we've changed it to June, so we'll be having it on the 27th at 4 p.m. in Queens.
Okay.
But there are lots of other events.
Is the Mass specific for any particular reason?
Mass is for Caribbeans. As a matter of fact, it started many years ago when one of the priests who had served in the Caribbean thought that since there was an Italian-American Day and so on, that Caribbean people could have a day also. And so he started the Caribbean Mass in St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Okay.
So now it's moved to Brooklyn, and sometimes we have it in Queens.
And we'll be having it this month, later on this month. That's
right.
Great. So tell us what Caribbeans are here, because I know it's not just one particular group.
Well, I mean, the Caribbean spans from below Florida to South America, including Panama, Belize, and so on. And there are lots of people here, particularly in Brooklyn and Queens. We know that Brooklyn and Queens happen to be probably the most diverse areas.
So we have Haitians.
So we have Haitians, Trinidadians, Grenadians. I'm from Grenada. Barbadians, Jamaicans.
And what's different and what's the same about the different groups? Where do they come together and bond within the church and also within the community, and where perhaps are they different that people may not realize that there are some differences?
There are some differences, but bonding was through the colonial people that had us. So those who were colonized by mainly British have a kind of a bond because their background is the same. Those who were colonized by the French, like Haitians and some St. Lucians, although St. Lucians are more recently British, they have a strong French connection also. So there are connections there. But more recently, because most of us have gained independence, political independence, and particularly when we're away from home, the differences are not so strong because we all love the music, we love the food, you know.
Well, talking about music and food, there were a lot of events going on to celebrate this month. Tell us about some of them beyond the Mass that you've talked about.
Well, I'm going to talk about, I know that there is something, a drive by the Institute of Caribbean Studies that's housed in Washington, D.C., to work with faith-based partnership to do the last drive for the census.
Okay.
And that includes going to churches, meeting with people in certain groups. There's always going to be food and music because that attracts people. So there will be that. We also have fundraising events that will help to raise funds for Haiti and youth groups in Haiti. So although we'll be partying at the beginning of the summer.
Nothing wrong with a good party and good weather.
The causes are definitely to help.
There's social causes.
Yes.
And certainly as the chairperson of the apostolate and being a part of the church, a lot of it is about social good.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming that you do things all year round that are
We
part
do
of it.
things all year round. And right now, a lot of the preparation is towards the Labor Day parade, when so many Catholics now parade as a group on Eastern Parkway. So a lot of the preparation will be going on for that. And
yeah, that's a big celebration.
Yes, it is a big celebration. It kind of is a highlight of the year for us.
Right, but June is a special month as well, and we'll be sure to share a little bit of information about what's going on with the apostolate on our website. Norma, thank you so much for being with us on Currents today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got to say about my people, good food, good music, good dancing.
There you go, yes. I found that out last year, actually. You were talking about the West Indian American Day Parade. They sent me to cover that. The whitest guy in all of the land, you know, and but it was awesome though. They had jerk chicken, they had dancing down Eastern Parkway, you know, they had the Mass to start it all off. And it was great. It was so much fun. I'm so glad that I got to go and be part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, there's step dancing and there's that.
I know.
There's quite the difference.
Funny thing, I didn't seem to fit in either place. No,
okay.
I really did. But it was a lot of fun.
No, it's great. And I mean, I was speaking with my tennis instructor the other day. He's Jamaican. He plays steel drums, and I asked him about the West Indian Day Parade and you know, whether or not he goes. And he says not so much now, but he said initially that he used to, and it really was a nice way to connect all the folks in the community with one another and really just have a good time.
Yeah,
so.
Colorful costumes, and as you said, great food.
And
too.
I'll have more info on the blog, as I mentioned, especially that Mass coming up later on this month. Just visit currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave.
But in the meantime, stay with us. We'll be right back. When we come back, sacrifice and solidarity on behalf of those who have been abused.
We are all part of one church, and that church is imperfect, but we're all part of it. And so we have to support one another, even in difficult times.
Finally tonight, the sex abuse crisis in the church has been garnering international attention for weeks now, and it's also been a source of pain for all involved, including the church and the victims.
Well, last Friday on the Feast of the Sacred Heart, some in New York City gathered to fast and pray for those affected by the scandal. It happened at Corpus Christi Parish on Manhattan's Upper West Side.
We feel here at the church that although we can't do a lot, we can certainly pray, and we believe in the power of prayer for healing, for strength in finding grace to amend the lives of those who committed the crimes, and for the rest of the church who have been looking on and seeing this happen, and who, many of whom have been scandalized.
People were very glad that something was done. They felt that there's been a lot of publicity, there's a lot of hand-wrenching, a lot of accusations, but nobody seemed to be praying and fasting. Since our parish name is Corpus Christi, the body of Christ, we feel very attuned to St. Paul's idea that we are one body with Christ as head, and that we as a community should do something for the whole church.
I see it as encouraging people to develop a habit of constant love. We are actually trying to unite ourselves in prayer with that whole body of people who are aching over this.
People were as upset, if not more so, than years ago, because it seemed like, are we ever going to hear the end of this?
We're very secular in our thinking. A lot of people have bought into the way of thinking about the church that people outside of the church think about it.
Well before any of the major claims of sexual abuse broke in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a case that was fairly prominent in the New York Archdiocese, and I knew this person, and needless to say, we all felt very badly about it, but a lot of us were angry with him for what he had done. When I heard of the people who had reached out to him when he came out of prison and he was destitute, he had no job prospect, no place to live or anything, I was kind of, why don't they just leave him alone? And I had to remember that parable of saying, these men were giving me a good example that I can't abandon anybody.
We have to help that scar heal. The wound needs to be dressed, but eventually you have to come back together and say, there's a forgiveness here that has to happen. We have to acknowledge the depth of the hurt of a lot of people, but part of the reparation is acknowledging that, getting it dealt with, and then bringing the church back together.
We are all part of one church, and that church is imperfect, but we're all part of it. And so we have to support one another, even in difficult times. When one suffers, we all suffer. If our people have a greater sense of solidarity with the entire church, I would be happy.
Really, that lesson of forgiveness is so important and so integral, and a little bit tough sometimes to realize and to do it, but they're doing it.
Yeah, and it's interesting and I think very powerful to hear the priest there talk about his own humanity in such a way where he was like, doubting these people that were lending out a helping hand to this priest who had been accused of abuse, been convicted, spent time in prison. Then when he was released, was very destitute, was just in a real bind, and he kind of looked down on people who were offering a helping hand or reaching out to that person, and he said, no, I have to remember that we have to reach out and love all of God's children no matter what.
Yeah, it is. And also what I think that this did was it was an opportunity for everyone to come together and to share in the mourning and in the healing in this sex abuse crisis, because as the woman said when she opened the piece, one of the things that you can do always is pray and also come together and actively do something, like fasting as well, to sort of, pay tribute to the fact that, there have really been some difficulties, but that everyone can hopefully pull through it.
Right, and there is hope, exactly. Well, that is it for tonight's edition of the show. Now, coming up tomorrow, a nurse from the Diocese of Brooklyn who says she was forced to take part in an abortion, and now she's suing. We'll hear her story.
Meantime, remember, you can always watch us online at currentsny.net, and you can also check out our Facebook page. It is constantly updating with new information. Until next time, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.